Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at creating the structure of the web page. That's creating the divs that are going to contain all of the content on the page. Some of you may have realized that in the previous video that I misspelled the name of my page. It was supposed to be called index and I made a typing error. So I'm going to show you how to rename that. First of all, I need to close the page down because you won't be able to rename it whilst it's still open. So I'm just going to click this little cross here to close it down. Then I'm going to right mouse click over here and I'm going to choose edit, and you can't see this but it's just off the screen. Come to the edit menu, get a little fly up menu, you need to choose rename. Alternatively, you can just press F2 on your keyboard and that will also allow you to rename it as well. So let's go and rename that and correctly spell it. So index, that's what we needed, and then I can just double click to reopen it. There we go, don't need that media queries bar open, that always opens up when you open up your page, so I can just close that again. Okay, so let's just have a look at our web page again that we're going to be building. So we have a banner div that's located here, we have a title that sits on the banner, we have a navigation bar, we have a left area, we have a main content area, and we have a footer. So these areas are going to be separate divs, so we will end up having a banner div, a title div, a navigation div, we'll have a left, a main, and a footer div. And all of these divs will be contained in a wrapper div which centers all of them into the middle of the browser window. Okay, so let's go back to Dreamweaver and make those divs and that structure. So back here in Dreamweaver, I need to go to the Insert tab up here and make sure that I'm working here on HTML. And then I can insert one of my divs. So that's what I'm going to do, is just click. It says content for new div tag goes here. So what I'm going to do is I need to assign each of these divs an ID. So divs are like containers on the page, so they're like boxes, and it's those boxes that you place your content into, like your text and your images and your videos, that kind of thing. Well, we need to give those boxes a unique identifier so that later on when we want to position or change the look of a box, we know which box we're targeting because it's got a specific unique name associated with it. To do that, you just simply come here onto this little plus symbol and you can add a class or an ID. Now because these are divs, we're going to add IDs, which means that they need to have a hashtag to start with and then a name with no spaces in it. So I'm going to choose this as wrapper because that's going to be my first div. All my other divs are now going to sit inside of this wrapper div, and this wrapper div is going to center all of them into the middle of the browser window. Now what's really important here is that you press the enter key, don't just click off anywhere. So it's very important to press enter. Now at the moment what it's saying here is it's saying where do you want to source this ID, where are we going to save it? So are we going to save this inside the actual page itself, so define it in the code between the head tags of the page, or are we going to put it into a new CSS file which is a separate piece of paper that is linked back to our web page? I'm going to create a new CSS file and I'm going to browse and I need to create a new folder. So inside my root folder I'm going to make a new folder which I'm going to call CSS, and it's inside that folder that I'm going to save this style sheet called My Styles. So you can call that style sheet anything you like, as long as it's sitting somewhere inside your root folder. It's just so happened that I'm being organized by creating a subfolder for it called CSS. I'm going to click OK, and then I need to press return on my keyboard again to say save that into my external style sheet. So up here on the page you'll see that a new file has appeared here. We've got the source code. This is the HTML code of the web page itself. But we now have another file which is attached to this page, and here's the link that attaches my style sheet. So there's my style sheet there in a folder called CSS called My Styles. That's now linked to this web page, and this is the external file. So here it is, and there is our wrapper div that we've identified, and it's waiting for some instructions to go inside here to position and style the look of that div. And that's all going to be held on a separate document where it's attached to our web page. Okay, let's go back to live view because we now need to create some other divs. Before I move on, I'm going to change the default text that appears inside divs because the default text doesn't relate to what the div is, so it's a little bit tricky to understand it. So I'm just going to double click that, go into this orange box. The orange box signifies that we're in text editing mode. So now I can change that to say wrapper, and just click off. Don't press return because it will do a return and create a space underneath. Just click off to enter that. Okay, now with that div highlighted, and I know it's highlighted because it's got a blue box around it and the div ID has come up as wrapper, I'm going to go and insert another div. And this div I want to nest inside of the wrapper div, because remember my divs are going to sit inside of this wrapper, so it needs to be nested. In it goes. I'm going to give this the ID of banner and press return again, and then say I want it to save it in my external style sheet, so press return again, and then I just need to come in here and change the text to say banner, and again I just double clicked to get into that orange box for the text editing. Click off anywhere. The banner div is currently highlighted. Create another div. Now this div I want to appear after. This is going to be the navigation div. We'll come back to the title div later on, but I want to create the navigation div. Now the navigation div, I need it to come after the banner. It sits below the banner on our page, but it's still nesting within inside of the wrapper div. So because the banner div was nested, divs after that which are positioned afterwards will also be nested. So create after, add a class, or sorry, an ID, so hashtag this one is going to be called navigation, and I just need to press enter and enter to say go into my style sheet, and then double click, and I'm going to call this navigation again, and again just click off anywhere. Whilst the navigation div is still highlighted, I'm going to enter and create another div. This is going to be after the navigation, so I'm going to go to put in my hashtag, and this is going to be the div that is called left, because this is the one that's going to sit on the left hand side. Press enter on your keyboard or return on your keyboard, and then return again to say save it into my external style sheet. Double click just to enter there and call it left. And that just allows us to identify the divs on the page if we give them these names. Another div, again it's going to be after, so the very first div, our banner div, was nested inside the wrapper div. All other divs are then after. So I'm just going to go and create this. So this is going to be main, press return, and again double click, and I want that to be main. Just one more div to go. So again this is going to sit after. Give it an ID. So this is going to be called footer, and I need to press return and return again, so it goes into my style sheet. Double click to go in and just call that footer. Okay, so if we just quickly switch over to code view, we'll have a look and see if we've got this structured correctly. So what you'll see in the code view is you'll see that you have a div here, and if I click on the opening div tag, you'll see it highlights the closing div tag. What you'll see is that that's our wrapper div because it's got the ID wrapper. All our other divs sit inside of those two tags, the opening and the closing. That means all of our other divs are nested inside the wrapper div. All our other divs just sit on their own, so they're just sitting here inside of that wrapper div. They've all got an ID given to them. That's a unique identifier. The only thing we don't need is we don't need that text that is sitting inside the wrapper div called wrapper. So we don't need that anymore. So here in code view, I'm just going to backspace that and take that out. Okay, so there we go. There's our wrapper div with all of our other divs nested inside of there. So that's how you create your structure of your page. That's how you make divs. That's how you create a wrapper div and how you nest your other divs so they sit inside of it. We've also created an external style sheet there as well. There needs to be another div which is going to sit inside the banner div, but I'll show you that later on when we come to look at making the banner. Okay, for the moment, that's how you create your div structure. Just one thing I want to do before we finish is how do we get that wrapper div to be a particular width and to center in the middle of the browser window. Well, for that I need to switch to the Css Designer tab. I need to go to the window menu over here and make sure the Css Designer is on if I can't see that tab. Here's my style sheet that I created just a minute ago. So this is my external style sheet. I then can come here and pick up my divs, IDs. So these IDs are automatically created in our style sheet as we created them over here. As we added these IDs, they were created here. So the one that I want is the one called wrapper. If you don't have one of the IDs here, if it's not appeared, you can just go to the plus symbol and then type it in and create it. So you could go plus and type #wrapper and create the ID. Since it's here, I'm just going to select it. Down here are the properties that I can set for it. This first one is to set the layout, text, borders, background colors, and any other CSS properties. We want the layout, and we need to set here a width. So I'm going to put it into pixels, and I'm going to choose a common default width for web pages, which is 960 pixels. Press return. What that does is it restricts the div, the wrapper div, to 960 pixels wide. So before, that div was stretching all the way across the page, and it would fulfill the whole width of the screen, but now it's restricted to just 960. Now I need to get it to center, so I'm just going to scroll down until I see my margin properties here. And I'm just going to click here, and I'm just going to type in auto, and then I'm going to click on, that's the left margin, and I also need to set the right margin to auto as well, and just press return. And what that does is it says to the page that whatever your width is, you then need to center the browser, center that div according to the browser width. Let's just quickly save this and preview in a browser. And it wants us to save the style sheet as well. So we created this style sheet, so we need to save that as well. And there's our wrapper div. You can't really see it because it's not got any color applied to it, but you can see it's moved off the left hand side here of the browser window. So it's 960 pixels wide, and what it's doing is it's saying, okay, whatever the browser window is, I must always be sitting in the center. So it knows to automatically work out what the left margin should be and the right margin should be. And that's what our auto property was doing here. So to center your wrapper div, you just simply want to select your wrapper div. So let's go down here and select it there. You want to make sure you set the width to 960, and then set just margin auto, margin left to auto, and margin right to auto to center your div.